Welcome to the Dr. John Char Holistic Health Show. This is the second series of talking about allergies. Last time we told you what an allergy is, how you can get an allergy, and some of the foods and some of the herbs that can help with allergies. Now we're going to be talking about a little bit more some of the diseases you may have or dysfunctions that you may have and what you can do about it. We want to teach you how you can control the allergies, not the allergies controlling you and your lifestyle, and also your health. So let's talk about some components of allergies. One of the most common things most common ailment that people suffer from is nasal congestion. It's usually caused by an allergy or infection. And it is the most frequently medical complaint in the United States. All in all, nasal congestion can be related to a number of ailments, including the common flu, which is bacterial viruses, sinus infections, which can be bacteria, viral, mold, or fungus, nasal polyps, vasomotor rhinitis, which is non-allergic condition, and overuse of nasal sprays and drops. In any case, the cold or the flu and sinus infections usually goes away within a couple of weeks, a week or 2 weeks. And there is also called the chronic sinusitis, which is a sinus infection. And that might last a month or even years. So what can contribute to people getting nasal congestion? And they said that's seasonal. Some people get these congestions seasonal because when the weather changes, the Earth magnetic field changes, the polarity changes, the positive negative ion changes, and the body is not adapted to that. And if the immune system is not strong enough to adapt to that, people start to get stuffed up, sick. So the temperature also is affected by how the weather changes. And when you have rain, especially with temperature changes, a lot of times you got a lot of moisture in the air, and that can create molds which you don't even know that's around you. And if you really inspected your home and it was always moist in your home, wet, you can find a lot of times traces of molds in there and eventually some fungus that can affect your health. Okay. So rhinitis means in medical terms stuffy nose. That's called vasomotor rhinitis. But it's a non-allergic condition characterized by chronically running nose, sneezing, nasal congestion, and is again affected by the temperature and the humidity in the air. Okay, you also can get that from which can trigger off this allergic reaction from strong odors, perfumes, smoke, fumes, and even bright sunlight. So you have to be able to control the factors. Now, what's the bottom line of this? Everybody getting allergies to this, and they have to worry about the temperature changes and moisture and things like that. Most of the time, people are in their homes after work. They're in their homes. They spend a lot of time in their home. And the home is not the most cleanest place in the world. It's not the cleanest area. Even though if you're very spick and span, you clean your house, make sure all the dust is every corner, and they say that can be a detriment. Why? Because as you pick up these resistance to these allergic reactions, or allergic stimulus, I call it stressors, the body's going to pick that up in small pieces, and then the body builds up a resistance to that. Now, they said if you clean out all the dirt and everything is spick and span so clean that the child will not pick up a sort of a resistance to it. and therefore they'd be more allergic to other things. All right. So now there's a dilemma here, whether you keep your house clean or you get a little dirt and you have your kids play outside to get some of the immune system built up against allergens like dirt and pollen and things like that. Okay. So what do you do now? Let's get a strategy of what you can do for that. All right. So the thing is right now is I believe in keeping a clean environment. However, with modern technology, and I'm going to show you that how you do it. What we have developed things like thousands and thousands of allergens. We call that stressors. And the balances are that what neutralizes it. It's the same principle of homeopathy. Like cures like. Okay? So, if the person's subject to that, that's why they give you vaccines or inoculations and things like that. But the problem is, when they give that to you, it's too strong. And the dose might be too much for your height, weight, and gender. If you actually had tested everybody who had a inoculation or vaccination, you tested for the height, the weight, the gender, you might be safer. But yet some people react violently to that, and it can last, these reactions can last for years because it's stored in your memory bank, in your brain. And anytime you stimulate that particular, you get a stimulus which stimulates the brain of the same frequency, just like homeopathy, like attracts like, it can initiate an allergic reaction. So we use a homeopathy, and it can be diluted to the million times the dilution of the original substance. And therefore the body just has a very little stimulus to create a allergen against the stressors. Now the key is to keep the stressors minimal, because if you can keep the stressors minimal, then you will not have that overbearing of stressors attacking the immune system. And then when the immune system breaks down, then you get autoimmune disorders. So that's the philosophy. That's the theory. Keep those stressors down, and you can be healthy. And so you can be in a room with 100 people sneezing and coughing and still come out not getting the cold, the actual cold. You'll be laid up for a week or two. You might maybe have a sniffle, but you recover very rapidly. Now, take for instance, in Europe, they had the bubonic plague. Why did everybody not get wiped out? Yet there are a lot of people who died from the bubonic plague, and doctors and nurses were treating them, but they were overworked, and pretty soon their immune system dropped, and they started getting this type of disease. Then he says, okay, how come, say, if you had 10 people who had, they had one prostitute who had sexual transmitted disease, and yet 10 customers had some affairs with her, and why does not 10 people get that sexual transmitted disease? Maybe only 3. How come the other 7 didn't get it? So that has to do with the immune system. Again, excuse me, the thing is that when you go ahead and breathe, now God gave you this nose right here, and this nose has some cilia, like hairs in there, and it warms up the air as the air goes through, and it filters out the dust. However, if this is stuffy and is runny all the time, then the mucus gets caught on and the bacteria which it covers, it gets caught on that mucus, and it slides up the nose, and it gets into your sinus. There's your sinus up there. And guess what? Now all of a sudden you got a sinus problem. Now how do you do that? Well, what happens when you get a sinus problem? You got inflammation on the mucous membrane of the sinus floor. It means the floor is not the sinus, is empty space in there, But the lining, you'll get inflammation. It's called histamines. You get inflammation with the histamines. And if you eat certain types of food, like soybeans or wheat or things like that, they can initiate some of that inflammation, and you can get a full-blown sinus problem. And what happens if you get blood vessels that ruptures in there, then you can get polyps, okay, nasal polyps in there. And so now, what do you do now? How do you get that controlled? And so we use what we call the neti pot, or the sinus drainage technique, where you actually get a neti pot. It looks like a small tea kettle. And instead of putting the salt comes with it. And people say, oh, I'll use salt, saline salt. You can use Himalayan salt, and it feels good because it flushes it out. But what if you use basically colloidal silver? Because that handles bacteria, fungus, okay, and molds, things, and viruses, okay? And so instead, you might put in 7 to 9 drops, depending how big you are, and you can test with 7 to 9, and you, instead of salt, because salt will negate it if you mix it together, and then you put it into, and you put it, flush one nostril, and it goes up, and it flushes and comes out the other way. And you're actually neutralizing a lot of the bacteria, but the most important is the fungus. And when you do that, you have to do it 3 times a day. Or if you have a nasal pump and you spray, you got to do it every half an hour. And then you do it for acute situations. You can do it for like maybe a week and a half and start to clearing up. And you got to keep ahead of the growth of the microbes. Every 2 hours, it propagates so fast that if you don't keep on top of it, it'll be in control. So what you want to do is lessen that down. So now, that's one way you could do it. If it's more chronic, means you had it more than 6 months, this sinus problem, then you might have to do it for a good close to 3 months. You got to do it 2.5 months, 3 months. Every day you got to do it. So now, we're going to be talking about things that can be in your home, because everybody resides in a home, and if you open the windows, all the dust and everything comes in, and spores and everything else. And when you close it, if you're sneezing and coughing, you have no circulation, and some people have air conditioning. So we're going to show you some pictures of that. But one of the biggest things in terms of the fungus and molds in your home environment is called Aspergillus fumigatus. Okay, Aspergillus fumigatus. Okay. That is the most common mold you find in a home environment. And how do you get rid of it? First of all, you can take some supplements to kind of help fight against the mold, and that's vitamin D3. And you can even take omega-3s, the fish oil, and krill is a very good one, krill, okay? And so that helps you, because what happens, this mold can weaken the immune system and causes lung disease or asthma. So you want to control, and also you want to control the moisture in the house. So you people say, well, I got an iron generator, negative iron generator. Oh, I've got a HEPA filter. And that's not good enough, because it doesn't control the moisture and things like that in the air. So what you need to do is get one of these that has a hydro, they call it hydro peroxide, and it has that, and it's powerful, and it goes into the air, and it neutralizes the spores, and in 72 hours you can knock out things in your home, providing you don't have all the walls in between, of course, and you have some of these you can stick on the air conditioning for central air conditioning, one little small thing, and it cleans out the air conditioning and goes into the house and cleans all the house, which is the air conditioning is supplying. You can do that in doctor's office. You can do it in hospitals. You can do it in rest homes. So that's a really great invention, and it's a really good research that backs it up that it can do it. Another thing is we're talking about plants. Okay, so let's talk about the homes, and I'm going to switch on to what we call the Elmo. Okay, switch on to that, and we're going to show you what a home looks like. So you're going to see right in here that there's airborne spores up here. I don't know if you can see it. Maybe I can zoom in more. Okay, right here. And it's an airborne mold and fungus. And it's for chronic sickness, coughing, bronchitis, sinusitis, sinus headache, congestion, and may even trigger off asthma attacks. And if you can see it, I mean, I can bring it up wider here. You can see it here. And it looks like this right in here. All right? And so then the other part could be in the home would be the odors. Is, you know, in a very old home that smells, this is great to clean it out. You can clean up musty molding, pet odors, cat urines, litter boxes, cigarette smoke, cooking odors, dead rodents, old air conditioning unit smell, chemicals, new home, carpets and paint fumes. So this is the area here, and you can see this. It has the viruses, the airborne fungus right in this area. It goes into this whole section in the house here. Let me see if I can bring it up sooner. Right in here, and you can see that this cleans it out. This is the mold, and it's found in the home, and it just sends all these spores over the house right in here. And you can see that here. And you can put a filter right in here, a special type of filter, and it will clean out all this area in 3 hours in one room. Then you can have the pores in your living room, say right in here, your living room, and if you can see that here, and it will clear up all the spores in this whole area. Remember now, you got all kind of furniture in there with dust, and it will clean out not the dust but the spores, okay, that the dust carries. Then you can keep the pollen, dust, and dander down, as you can see here, and you see all these spots. You see these things floating around. Those are all mold and fungus, and that will clean up the parlor. Clean out that, and you see, and then you also will have this what we call disaster odors, which has flood odors or fire-related odors or cooking accidents. In your kitchen you can clean that out. So now the pollen here, this is pollen dust dander here, see that right in here, and you see the itchy eyes, nose, and chronic sneezing, coughing, sinus headaches, congestion, and may even trigger asthma attacks, and it can be in your area in here. All right, right here, and then finally you can get the viruses in here, and the viruses can be in sort of like a blue knot right in here. See the viruses in here, and that can go into the home and contaminate the whole home. Well, you get the viruses, surface airborne bacteria. And you have Staphylococcus aureus, MRSA, which is the surface type of bacteria, E. coli, flu, colds, listeria, and the results. These were tested by the University of Texas, the MRSA surface bacteria. And it reduced these up to 99% of this airborne bacteria. So that's pretty interesting. It's not... what we call that, it's not the, I'll put another one on here, okay, and we go back to the screen again, and we'll hold it down here. Okay, so it's called hydroperoxide, and you can reduce airborne and surface bacteria germs, including MRSI from West Texas A&M. They did some studies on that. Then they did this right here. It reduces dangerous chemicals and VOC. It's right in here. And what they did was they put some petri dishes there, and they placed it 2 feet apart. And then they left it there for 3 days. Came back, and you can see all these bacteria in here. You can see molds here and yeast in this area in the petri dish. And then they put this filter on like this with a hydroperoxide in there and moisture and air. It floats through the air, and then it reduced the airborne mold and fungus up to 99%. So let me see if I can bring that closer. Yeah, right here. Okay, this area here. And it eliminated almost any odor 24 hours a day. And the bacteria on the petri dish, and the molds and fungus cleared up right in this area here. You can see the petri dish right here as it cleared up. Okay, so now you have that. You can get one of these instrumentation here. It's not, again, it's not a HEPA filter, and it's not a negative iron generator, you know. And this is a pretty unique instrument that came out. Okay. So now the next thing you can do is you can put down what we call plants, which generate oxygen, removes odor, and it can help with the all the different bacteria and molds in the house. And it's called peace lily. You've seen this in the nurseries, and that's one of the things that it helps. It grows well in the home. There's another one thing called rubber plant. Rubber plant, and you can see the rubber plant here. Seven different types of plant here. Let me see here. Rubber plant, right here. All right, can you see that now? Okay, here, rubber plant. Or you can put on what we call areca palm. You can see that, if you can see that, we'll put that up here wide. Here, you can see the palm like a palm. You see the palm like you see this a lot in different homes. See, it's a palm tree, areca palm. Or you can use what we call Boston fern. Everybody know what Boston ferns are. Okay, Boston ferns, you see that. You see when a lot of them hanging on the trees. Right here, Boston fern. Let me bring that up again. Okay, you see that? That's Boston fern. All right. Or then what we do basically is also we use this equipment called the PEMF, pulse electromagnetic frequencies, right in here. And person lays on the table, and you have all these frequencies going on up to 30 hertz, and what it does is energizes the cell, so we can make the cell more resistant against the invasion of stressors from bacteria, viruses, and fungus, and increase it. So you can see that the person's laying on the table, and it energizes the whole body, and that really boosts up the cells because it produces energy in the cell called ATP, and it synthesizes proteins, increases the membrane cell wall permeability, and it actually increases the resistance against any invasion of stressors. Okay, and you can see a pillow on the top, and then you can really isolate the area in the body you want to focus on in terms of bringing that frequency in. Then the next one you can do is also, and you can see a person here and right here, and you can see there on him is this what we call the infratonic, and that also brings in frequencies. So you can actually place it on acupuncture points on the different head or the rest of the body, and that will bring in frequencies, and it will stimulate the cells to increase the resistance against stressors. Okay, and the cells will be healthy to be able to heal the tissue that you're trying to repair. Okay, so from an illness or injury, and that's it. You can see right here is the equipment with the hand, and this is a holder, and we put ice there too in case people got pain. We put the ice there, so you can see a gentleman here with the equipment called the infratonic on the acupuncture points on the head. All right. Then we have this equipment, and this gentleman here is sitting here, and you can see the monitor screens where we have something like maybe, well, not maybe, but say about 10,000 different types of allergens and more, and we put it on a computer. You can see he's put his hand on any device, which is a receiver, and he goes into the computer, into his body. He's sitting on here on a magnetic bed, and it also increases the resistance against stressors in the body. And we're picking up the information. You can see right in this area here, we're picking up the information, so then we can actually select the right remedies for the patient. So you see, we're using all different types of biotechnology to improve the person's health. So all in all, it's a little bit different, back me, it's a little bit different from basically what we do actually a resistance test. Okay, it's different from what the normal way of doing, I say, a diagnosis or assessment. So we're not going ahead and injecting anything on the body. It's using all by energy. And so therefore, it's a different way, a different approach of improving the body's resistance to any type of invasion or infection, and therefore building the body's strength. It's sort of like a prevention, and then the body has a chance to heal itself rather than letting any drug trying to heal. Drugs don't heal anybody. So that's a natural way of doing things. So I sort of give you an overview of what the traditionals use and how these can affect the body. So the next show we're going to have is in December, and we're going to be showing some things about how you can improve your cardiovascular rate within 20 minutes using a 20-minute technique on how you can do that technique to improve your cardiovascular that you would spend 2 hours, other than 2 hours in the gym to do. So we'll see you on the next show.